First contact and rising tensions. The vast expanse of space had always beckoned humanity, promising adventure and discovery beyond the confines of Earth. But as the crew of the ESS Horizon would soon learn, the cosmos held dangers as well as wonders. Captain Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the horizon, her eyes fixed on the swirling, ethereal patterns of the nebula before them. The ship's unusual design, a series of interconnected cylinders with a massive, donut-shaped structure at its fore, cut an odd figure against the backdrop of stars. But every human knew that the bulky gravity generator was as much a part of their ships as the hull itself. "Captain, we're picking up an anomalous reading," Lieutenant Zhang announced, his fingers dancing across his console. "It doesn't match any known signatures in our database." Reeves leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Origin: approximately 500,000 kilometers off our port bow, within the nebula." The captain nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through her. "Helm, adjust course. Let's take a closer look." As the horizon glided deeper into the nebula, the anomaly resolved itself into a sleek, almost organic-looking vessel. Its surface rippled with iridescent patterns, reminiscent of light playing across water. The bridge crew watched in awe as the alien ship grew larger on their view screen. "Open a channel," Reeves ordered, straightening her uniform. "Let's make first contact." For several tense moments, there was no response. Then, without warning, a holographic projection materialized on the bridge. The creature it depicted was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. A mass of translucent tentacles surrounding a bulbous, pulsating body. Multiple eyes, each a different color, blinked independently as they studied the human crew. "I am Zixlora of the Xeraxian Collective," the alien announced, its voice a melodious burble that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds. "You have entered our sovereign territory. Identify yourselves." Captain Reeves stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I am Captain Sarah Reeves of the Earth Spaceship Horizon. We come in peace, seeking to explore and establish friendly relations with other species." Zixlora's tentacles writhed in what might have been amusement or contempt. It was impossible to tell. "Peace. Your very presence here is an act of aggression. Your crude vessel pollutes our sacred nebula with its barbaric technology." Reeves frowned, taken aback by the hostile response. "I assure you, we meant no offense. We were unaware that this area was claimed territory. Perhaps we could discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," Zixlora interrupted. "You will leave immediately, or face the consequences of your trespass." With that, the hologram vanished, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Well," Reeves said after a moment, "that could have gone better. Helm, plot a course out of the nebula. We need to report this encounter to Earth Command." As the horizon turned to leave, alarms blared across the ship. "Captain," Zhang shouted, "the alien vessel is powering up weapons." "Evasive maneuvers," Reeves ordered, gripping her chair as the ship lurched to the side. A bolt of energy sizzled past them, missing by mere meters. "Return fire," the weapons officer asked, her hand hovering over the controls. Reeves hesitated. Opening fire could spark an interstellar war, but allowing themselves to be destroyed wouldn't help humanity either. "Warning shots only," she decided. "Let's show them we can defend ourselves without escalating this further." The horizon's lasers lanced out, deliberately missing the Xeraxian ship, but demonstrating their capability. For a moment, it seemed to work. The alien vessel ceased its attack. But then, without warning, it vanished. "Where did they go?" Reeves demanded. "Unknown, Captain," John replied, his voice tight with tension. "They seem to have some form of cloaking technology we can't penetrate." The bridge crew held their breath, scanning every instrument for a sign of the Xeraxians. Seconds stretched into minutes, the silence broken only by the soft beeping of consoles. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Reeves was thrown from her chair as warning klaxons screamed to life. "We've been hit," The engineering officer shouted over the chaos. They targeted our gravity generator. Reeves pulled herself up, fighting against the failing artificial gravity. Status report. Gravity generator is offline. We're venting atmosphere from decks 3 through 7. Emergency bulkheads are engaged, but we're losing power fast. The captain's mind raced. Without the gravity generator, they were sitting ducks. But more than that, prolonged exposure to zero-G could be deadly for the crew. They needed to act fast. Gravity generator is offline. We're venting atmosphere from decks 3 through 7. Emergency bulkheads are engaged, but we're losing power fast. The captain's mind raced. Without the gravity generator, they were sitting ducks. But more than that, prolonged exposure to zero-G could be deadly for the crew. They needed to act fast. Divert all non-essential power to life support and engines, Reeves ordered. Zhang, send out a distress call on all frequencies. Helm, set a course for the nearest Earth outpost, maximum speed. As the crew scrambled to obey, Reeves stared at the view screen, now showing only the twinkling stars of normal space. The Xeraxians were gone, but she knew this was only the beginning. Over the next few months, reports flooded in from across human space. The Xeraxians, it seemed, had declared a unilateral war on humanity. Their hit-and-run tactics, coupled with their advanced technology, left Earth's fledgling space force reeling. Colonial outposts fell one by one, their gravity generators targeted with surgical precision, before Xeraxian boarding parties overwhelmed the disoriented defenders. The aquatic aliens moved through zero-G environments with terrifying ease, their fluid bodies perfectly adapted to the vacuum of space. On Earth, the United Earth government convened an emergency session. The chamber buzzed with tension as Admiral Elena Vasquez, head of the Earth Space Force, took the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice grave, "we face an unprecedented threat. The Xeraxians possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. Their cloaking devices render our early warning systems useless, and their targeted attacks on our gravity generators leave our ships and colonies defenseless." Murmurs of despair rippled through the assembly. Vasquez held up a hand for silence. "But all is not lost. Our scientists and engineers are working around the clock to develop countermeasures. Moreover, we have seen evidence that individual human ingenuity can overcome even the most advanced Xeraxian technology." She nodded to an aide, who activated a holographic display. It showed footage from a colonial defense, where a small militia had managed to repel the Xeraxian assault. By using their environment creatively, in this case, magnetic boots and improvised projectile weapons, these brave colonists were able to hold their ground even after losing artificial gravity. This tells us that the Xeraxians, for all their advantages, are not invincible. The display changed, showing schematics for a new ship design. "We are fast-tracking the development of vessels that can operate effectively in zero-G conditions. Additionally, we're implementing mandatory zero-G combat training for all Earth Space Force personnel." A delegate stood, his face creased with worry. "Admiral, with all due respect, will this be enough? The Xeraxians seem intent on our complete destruction. Shouldn't we be seeking diplomatic solutions?" Vasquez's expression hardened. "We have attempted to open diplomatic channels multiple times since the first encounter. Each overture has been met with silence or outright hostility. For now, we must focus on defending our people and our territory." As the meeting continued, strategies were debated and plans were made. But everyone in the chamber knew that humanity was in for the fight of its life. Thousands of light years away, aboard the Xeraxian command ship, Zixlora reviewed the latest battle reports. The Supreme Coordinator's tentacles writhed with satisfaction as they absorbed the data. "These humans," Zixlora burbled to their second-in-command, "are persistent, I'll grant them that. But they are no match for our superior biology and technology." The second-in-command, Vexura, pulsed uncertainly. "Supreme Coordinator, if I may." Some of our raid leaders have reported unexpected difficulties. The humans seem to be adapting quickly to zero-G combat. Zixlora's central eye narrowed. Impossible. Their frail, gravity-dependent bodies cannot hope to match our natural abilities. And yet, Vexera continued cautiously. The latest raid on their Proxima Centauri colony resulted in significant casualties on our side. The humans used some form of magnetized armor to maintain mobility after we disabled their gravity systems. For a moment, Zixlora was silent, their body flickering through a range of colors that reflected deep thought. Then, with a dismissive wave of a tentacle, they said, "A minor setback. Increase the frequency and intensity of our attacks. We will break their will to resist, and then we will claim their worlds for our own." As Vexera left to relay the orders, Zixlora turned their gaze to the holographic display of human-controlled space. Soon, they thought, all of this would belong to the Xeraxian collective. These primitive, land-dwelling creatures would learn their place in the cosmic order, or be swept aside. But deep in the recesses of Zixlora's mind, a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. These humans were proving to be more resourceful than anticipated. The Supreme Coordinator pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the glory that awaited the Xeraxian people. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun, and neither side could predict the ingenious strategies and desperate gambles that would unfold in the conflict to come. The human response. The corridors of Earth Space Force headquarters buzzed with frantic energy. 6 months had passed since first contact with the Xeraxians, and humanity was on the back foot. But today, a glimmer of hope shone through the gloom of recent defeats. Admiral Elena Vasquez strode purposefully into the war room, her eyes scanning the assembled officers and scientists. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation, "I believe we may have found our edge." With a gesture, she activated the central holodisplay. A schematic of a new spacecraft design rotated slowly above the table. "Allow me to introduce the Aegis-class destroyer," Vasquez continued. "Dr. Patel, if you would explain the key features." A woman of Indian descent stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with barely contained excitement. "Thank you, Admiral. The Aegis represents a paradigm shift in our approach to space combat. Instead of trying to match the Xeraxians' technology, we're leveraging our own unique strengths." Dr. Patel manipulated the hologram, zooming in on specific sections of the ship. "First, we've completely redesigned the gravity generator. Instead of one large vulnerable unit, we've distributed smaller generators throughout the ship. Even if some are damaged, the others can compensate. More importantly," she continued, "we've integrated a revolutionary new system we're calling gravity manipulation fields. These allow us to create localized areas of increased or decreased gravity within and around the ship. This will give us unprecedented maneuverability in combat situations." Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. Admiral Vasquez nodded, a grim smile on her face. "And the best part, the Xeraxians won't see it coming. They've become so focused on targeting our traditional gravity generators that they won't expect this new approach." "When can we begin production?" a gruff voice general asked. "The prototype is already under construction," Vasquez replied. "But a ship is only as good as its crew. That's why I've called in one of our most innovative officers to command the Aegis on its maiden voyage." The door slid open, and a woman in her mid-30s entered. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes scanned the room with keen intelligence. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet Captain Ilara Chen." Chen saluted crisply. "It's an honor to be here, Admiral." Vasquez turned back to the assembled officers. "Captain Chen has consistently demonstrated an ability to think outside the box and adapt to rapidly changing situations. Her tactics during the defense of Europa Station saved countless lives and dealt the Xeraxians their first significant defeat." Chen stepped forward, her posture radiating confidence. "Thank you, Admiral. I've reviewed the Aegis specs, and I believe this ship could be the game changer we've been looking for." but we'll need to develop entirely new combat doctrines to fully utilize its capabilities. That's precisely why you're here, Captain, Vask said. You'll have carte blanche to select your crew and develop those tactics. The fate of humanity may well rest on the success of this mission. As the meeting continued, strategies were discussed and plans were refined. But even as hope began to blossom in the hearts of Earth's defenders, the Xeraxians were far from idle. Deep in Xeraxian-controlled space, Supreme Coordinator Zixlora undulated with barely contained rage. The holoprojector before them displayed footage of the latest raid on a human outpost, a raid that had ended in a humiliating defeat for the Xeraxian forces. "Explain this," Zixlora burbled, their skin flashing angry shades of red and orange. "How did a handful of humans repel an entire assault squadron?" Vexera, now bearing the scars of recent combat, pulsed nervously. "Supreme Coordinator, it appears the humans have developed new defensive techniques. They're using their environment in ways we didn't anticipate." The footage showed human defenders using grappling hooks and magnetized boots to maintain mobility in zero-G. More disturbingly, they had somehow managed to create localized gravity fields, trapping Xeraxian borders in pockets of crushing force. "Impossible," Zixlora hissed. "Their primitive technology shouldn't be capable of such feats." And yet, Vexera continued cautiously, "The evidence is clear. What's more, our standard tactic of disabling their gravity generators seems to be losing effectiveness. Some human ships are continuing to function even after sustaining significant damage." Zixlora's tentacles writhed in agitation. For the first time since the conflict began, a tendril of doubt crept into their mind. Could they have underestimated these land dwellers? "Intensify our research efforts," Zixlora ordered after a moment of contemplation. "I want new weapons developed to counter these human innovations, and double the size of our next assault fleet. We will crush their resistance with overwhelming force." As Vexera left to carry out the orders, Zixlora turned their gaze to the star map showing the front lines of the conflict. The Xeraxian advance had slowed to a crawl in recent weeks. It was time to remind these humans of their rightful place in the cosmic order. Back on Earth, Captain Ilara Chen stood in the shuttle bay of the newly christened ESS Aegis, watching as her hand-picked crew filed aboard. Each member had been selected not just for their skills, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. Her XO, Commander Raj Patel, approached with a datapad in hand. "Final crew manifest, Captain. All personnel are aboard and all systems are green. We're ready to launch on your order." Chen nodded, taking a final look at the sleek lines of her new command. The Aegis was a far cry from the bulky, utilitarian designs of previous human vessels. Its smooth, almost organic curves belied the revolutionary technology hidden within. "Very good, Commander. Let's get underway. It's time we took the fight to the enemy." As the shuttle bay doors closed behind them, Chen felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The Aegis represented humanity's best hope for turning the tide of the war. But would it be enough? The ship's engines hummed to life, and Chen felt the familiar pull of acceleration as they lifted off. But there was something different this time, a subtle flexibility in the artificial gravity that hinted at the ship's new capabilities. "Helm, set course for the Proxima Centauri system," Chen ordered as she settled into the captain's chair on the bridge. "Let's see what this ship can really do." As the Aegis leaped into FTL, leaving the familiar confines of the Sol system behind, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Xeraxians had no idea what was coming for them. The Proxima Centauri system had seen better days. Once a thriving hub of human expansion, it now stood as a battered bulwark against the Xeraxian advance. The space around the system's habitable planet was littered with debris from countless skirmishes. It was into this tense environment that the Aegis arrived, dropping out of FTL with a flash of pseudomotion. "Status report," Chen barked, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. "All systems nominal, Captain," reported Lieutenant Sarah Wong from the op station. "No sign of Xeraxian activity in the immediate vicinity." Chen nodded, but her expression remained guarded. Stay alert. They'd been hitting this system hard lately. It's only a matter of time before. Contact, interrupted Lieutenant Xander Rios from Tactical. Multiple Xeraxian signatures dropping out of FTL. It's a raiding party, at least 5 ships. Red alert, Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the sudden spike of adrenaline. Shields up, weapons hot. Let's give them a warm welcome. The bridge crews sprang into action, the air thick with tension. This would be the Aegis's first true test in combat. Captain, Rios called out, the Xeraxians are deploying their usual formation. They're targeting our position. I think they're trying to disable our gravity generator. A predatory smile spread across Chen's face. Perfect. Let them come. Helm, on my mark. Execute Maneuver Theta 3. Tactical. Prepare to deploy gravity manipulation fields as discussed. The Xeraxian ships closed in, their energy weapons charging. They expected an easy target, another human vessel to cripple and board at their leisure. They couldn't have been more wrong. Now, Chen shouted. The Aegis suddenly lurched, but not from enemy fire. Instead, it began to spin on its axis, creating a disorienting spiral pattern. At the same time, localized gravity fields sprang to life around the ship, creating a maze of alternating high and low G zones. The incoming Xeraxian fire went wide, confused by the Aegis's erratic movement. 2 of the alien ships, attempting to close for a boarding action, found themselves caught in a pocket of intense gravity, their sleek hulls buckling under the strain. Return fire, Chen ordered. Target their propulsion systems. The Aegis's weapons blazed to life, each shot unerringly accurate despite the ship's spiral maneuver. Caught off guard by the humans' unconventional tactics, the Xeraxian ships struggled to regroup. One by one, the alien vessels fell to the Aegis's superior tactics and technology. Those that could still maneuver quickly retreated, jumping to FTL with their gravitational sensors overloaded and confusion reigning among their crews. As the last Xeraxian ship disappeared from their screens, a cheer went up on the Aegis's bridge. They had done it. Their first major victory against a numerically superior Xeraxian force. Chen allowed herself a moment to savor the triumph before turning to her XO. Commander Patel, begin damage assessment and prepare a full report for Earth Command. I have a feeling they're going to be very interested in the results of our first engagement. As the crew set about their tasks with renewed vigor, Chen's mind was already racing ahead. This battle was just the beginning. The Xeraxians would adapt, would come back stronger. But for the first time since the war began, humanity had a fighting chance. The tide was turning, and Captain Ilara Chen intended to ride that wave all the way to victory, escalation, and innovation. The news of the Aegis's victory spread through human space like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of billions. But the Xeraxians were far from defeated, and their response was swift and terrible. Captain Ilara Chen stood on the bridge of the Aegis, her face grim as she watched the tactical display. Red dots representing Xeraxian ships swarmed across the map, striking at human colonies and outposts with unprecedented fury. They're not just raiding anymore, Commander Raj Patel observed, his voice tight with concern. This is a full-scale offensive. Chen nodded, her mind racing through potential strategies. They're scared, she said after a moment. We've shown them we can fight back effectively, and now they're trying to overwhelm us, before we can build more ships like the Aegis. As if to punctuate her words, an urgent communication came through from Earth Command. Admiral Vasquez's hologram appeared on the bridge, her expression grave. Captain Chen, I'm afraid I have bad news. The Xeraxians have launched a major assault on our shipyards in the Epsilon Eridani system. If they succeed in destroying our production facilities, it could set us back years. Chen's jaw tightened. What are our orders, Admiral? We need you to get to Epsilon Eridani as fast as possible. You'll be coordinating with the local defense fleet to repel the Xeraxian attack. But be warned, Our intelligence suggests they'd developed new weapons specifically designed to counter the Aegis's capabilities. Understood, Admiral. We're on our way. As the hologram faded, Chen turned to her crew. You heard the Admiral. Helm, set course for Epsilon Eridani. Maximum speed. Tactical, I want a full analysis of our recent engagements. If the Xeraxians have new tricks up their sleeves, we need to be ready. The Aegis leaped into FTL, racing against time to save humanity's best hope for turning the tide of the war. Deep in Xeraxian space, Supreme Coordinator Zixlora watched with grim satisfaction as reports of successful attacks flooded in. The human vermin had proved more resilient than expected, but this overwhelming assault would surely break their will to resist. Vexera approached, their tentacles writhing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Supreme Coordinator, our new weapons have proved highly effective against the human gravity manipulation technology. Their shipyards in the Epsilon Eridani system are on the verge of falling. Zixlora's body pulsed with pleasure. Excellent. Once we destroy their ability to produce more of those accursed Aegis-class ships, victory will be assured. But Vexera's colors shifted to a more cautious hue. There is one concern, Supreme Coordinator. Our deep cover operatives have reported some unusual activity in the humans' research facilities. They seem to be working on something new, something potentially game-changing. Zixlora's tentacles lashed out in irritation. What could these primitive creatures possibly develop that could threaten us? No matter. Intensify the assault on Epsilon Eridani. I want those shipyards reduced to atoms. As Vexera hurried to relay the orders, Zixlora turned their gaze back to the strategic display. Soon, they thought, the galaxy would be cleansed of the human infestation, and the Xeraxian collective would reign supreme. The Aegis dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Epsilon Eridani system, and Captain Chen's heart sank at the sight that greeted them. The space around the shipyards was a maelstrom of destruction, human and Xeraxian ships locked in desperate combat amidst a hail of weapons fire and debris. Status report, Chen barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Lieutenant Wang's fingers flew over her console. The shipyards are still intact, but their defenses are failing. The Xeraxians have deployed some kind of new weapon. It's disrupting our gravity manipulation fields and leaving our ships vulnerable. Chen's mind raced, analyzing the situation. The Xeraxians had adapted faster than expected, but that didn't mean humanity was out of options. Helm, take us in. Tactical, prepare to deploy our own little surprise. It's time to see if Dr. Patel's latest innovation works as advertised. As the Aegis plunged into the fray, Chen opened a channel to the defending human fleet. This is Captain Chen of the ESS Aegis. All ships, prepare to execute Maneuver Omega on my mark. And get ready for a little change in perspective. The human ships acknowledge, though confusion was evident in some of the responses. Chen allowed herself a small smile. If this worked, confusion would be the least of the Xeraxians' problems. Now, Chen ordered as the Aegis closed to optimal range. Suddenly, the space around the human ships seemed to twist. It was as if reality itself was being warped and reshaped. The Xeraxian vessels, caught off guard by the strange phenomenon, found their carefully coordinated attack patterns thrown into disarray. It's working, Commander Petel reported, a note of awe in his voice. The quantum flux generator is operating within expected parameters. The Xeraxians are completely disoriented. Chen nodded, her expression fierce. All ships press the attack. Target their new weapon platforms first. The human fleet surged forward, their movements synchronized despite the bizarre distortions in space around them. The Xeraxians, their own gravity-based technology rendered useless by the quantum flux, were caught flat-footed. One by one, the alien ships fell to the renewed human assault. Those that could still maneuver began to retreat, their carefully laid plans in tatters. As the last Xeraxian vessel jumped to FTL, a cheer went up across the human fleet. The shipyards were safe, and humanity had once again snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. But Captain Chen's celebration was short-lived. As the adrenaline of battle faded, she realized that this conflict had entered a new and even more dangerous phase. The Ziraxians would be back, and next time they would be ready for humanity's latest trick. "Commander Patel," she said, turning to her XO, "prepare a full report for Earth Command. We need to get this quantum flux technology rolled out to the entire fleet as quickly as possible." Patel nodded, but his expression was troubled. "Captain, the power requirements for the quantum flux generator are enormous. The Aegis can handle it, but most of our ships would need significant retrofitting." Chen's jaw tightened. "Then we'll just have to work faster. The Ziraxians aren't going to give us much time to catch our breath." As if to underscore her words, a priority message came through from Admiral Vasquez. Chen's blood ran cold as she read its contents. "What is it, Captain?" Patel asked, noting her expression. Chen looked up, her eyes hard. "It's worse than we thought. The Ziraxians weren't just after our shipyards. This whole attack was a diversion. While we were occupied here, they hit half a dozen of our outer colonies. Millions are dead or missing." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. The victory they had just achieved suddenly felt hollow in the face of such devastating losses. But Chen wasn't about to let despair take hold. "We've proved today that we can beat them," she said, her voice ringing with determination. "Now we need to take the fight to them. It's time humanity stopped playing defense and started pushing back." As her words sank in, Chen saw resolve harden in the eyes of her crew. They had won a battle today, but the war was far from over, and humanity would need every ounce of ingenuity and courage it could muster to survive the trials ahead. In a top-secret research facility on Mars, Dr. Ava Rodriguez stared at the holographic display before her, a mixture of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins. The quantum flux generator had proved its worth in battle, but it was only the beginning. "Run the simulation again," she ordered her team. "And this time, increase the power output by 15%. As the computers hummed to life, complex equations and models swirling through the air, Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of hope. If her calculations were correct, humanity was on the verge of a breakthrough that would change the nature of space combat forever. The simulation concluded, and a gasp went up from the assembled scientists. The results were even better than they had dared to hope. Rodriguez's fingers flew over her console, composing an urgent message to Earth Command. "Admiral Vasquez," she began, "I believe we found a way to not just counter the Ziraxian threat, but to render their entire technological advantage obsolete. We're ready to begin prototype construction immediately." As she sent the message, Rodriguez gazed out the window at the red Martian landscape. Somewhere out there, across the vast gulfs of space, the Ziraxians were no doubt planning their next move. But this time, humanity would be ready for them. The war for survival had entered a new phase, and the ingenuity of the human spirit was about to be put to the ultimate test. The Battle of Proxima Centauri. The war room of Earth Space Force headquarters was abuzz with activity. Holograms flickered in the air, displaying real-time updates from across human-controlled space. At the center of it all stood Admiral Elena Vasquez, her face etched with lines of worry and determination. "The Ziraxians are massing for a major offensive," she announced to the assembled officers and scientists. "Intelligence suggests they're targeting Proxima Centauri. If we lose that system, Earth itself will be vulnerable." Captain Ilara Chen, freshly returned from the successful defense of Epsilon Eridani, stepped forward. "Admiral, the Aegis is ready for action. With the upgrades from Dr. Rodriguez's team, we stand a fighting chance." Vasquez nodded, but her expression remained grave. "The Aegis alone won't be enough, Captain. We're committing every available ship to this battle. It's do or die." As if on cue, Dr. Ava Rodriguez burst into the room, her eyes wild with excitement. "Admiral, Captain, we've done it. The prototype is ready." A hush fell over the war room. Everyone knew of the top-secret project that had consumed the scientist and her team for months, but few knew the details. "Explain, Doctor," Vasquez ordered. Rodriguez activated a holographic display, showing a device that looked like a complex array of interlocking rings. "We call it the dimensional anchor. It creates a localized field that forces space-time to conform to Earth normal physics. Within its range, all the Ziraxians' gravity manipulation and quantum-based technology will be rendered inert." A murmur of excitement rippled through the room. Chen's mind raced with the tactical possibilities. "Can it be mounted on a ship?" she asked. Rodriguez nodded. "We've prepared a version for the Aegis. But there's more." She manipulated the hologram, zooming out to show a massive structure. "This is the strategic scale version. If we can deploy it at Proxima Centauri, it will cover the entire system. The Ziraxians won't know what hit them." For the first time in months, a genuine smile crossed Vasquez's face. "Well done, Doctor. This could be the turning point we've been waiting for." She turned to Chen. "Captain, you'll lead the fleet. Your primary objective is to protect the transport carrying the dimensional anchor until it can be activated. Everything depends on this mission." Chen saluted crisply. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." As the meeting broke up and preparations for the coming battle intensified, Chen couldn't shake a feeling of both excitement and dread. They had a chance, a real chance, to strike a decisive blow against the Ziraxians. But the stakes had never been higher. In the swirling, ethereal realm of Ziraxian space, Supreme Coordinator Zixlora pulsed with anticipation. Before them, the largest fleet ever assembled in Ziraxian history prepared for the final push into human territory. "The time has come," Zixlora announced to the assembled war leaders. "We will crush the human resistance at Proxima Centauri, and then sweep on to their homeworld. The galaxy will finally be cleansed of their primitive presence." Vexera, now bearing the scars and honors of many battles, approached. "Supreme Coordinator, all is in readiness. But there are concerns among some of the fleet commanders. The humans have proven more resilient than expected. Some fear this could be a trap." Zixlora's tentacles lashed out, striking Vexera with a painful reprimand. "Fears, concerns. We are Ziraxian. Our technology is superior, our tactics unmatched. The humans are clever vermin, nothing more. They will be exterminated like the pests they are." As Vexera retreated, visibly chastened, Zixlora turned their gaze to the virtual display of Proxima Centauri. Soon, they thought, the system would be awash in the death throes of humanity's last futile resistance. The Aegis dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, flanked by the largest assemblage of human warships ever seen. At the center of the formation, protected by layers of escorts, was the massive transport carrying the dimensional anchor. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, her posture radiating calm confidence despite the nervous energy that permeated the ship. "Status report," she ordered. "All ships present and accounted for, Captain," Commander Puddle reported. "The dimensional anchor is powered up and ready for deployment. We're just waiting for the Ziraxians to show up." Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They'll be here soon enough. All ships, maintain formation. Remember, our primary objective is to protect the anchor until it can be activated. Everything else is secondary." Minutes ticked by, the tension mounting with each passing moment. Then, suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open as the Ziraxian fleet arrived en masse. "My God," Patel breathed, his eyes wide. "There must be thousands of them." Chen's jaw tightened at the sight of the vast alien armada. The Ziraxians had committed everything to this battle, just as humanity had. "Stay focused," she ordered. "Helm, execute evasive pattern Delta. Tactical, prepare to engage." The space between the two fleets erupted in a firestorm of energy weapons and missiles. The Ziraxians pressed forward, their superior numbers allowing them to absorb losses that would have crippled the human fleet. "They're trying to flank us," Patel warned as the battle raged. "If they get to the transport." "Not going to happen," Chen interrupted. "All ships, execute maneuver Omega-3. Let's show them our latest trick." As one, the human fleet activated their quantum flux generators. The space around them twisted and warped, throwing the Zyraxian attack into disarray. But the aliens were ready this time, their own ships equipped with countermeasures that allowed them to navigate the distorted spacetime. The battle devolved into a chaotic melee, with ships on both sides exploding into silent fireballs. The transport carrying the dimensional anchor inched closer to its deployment point, but the Zyraxian noose was tightening. "Captain," Patel called out, his voice tight with stress, "we're taking heavy losses. The Zyraxians are adapting to our tactics faster than expected. I don't think we can hold them off much longer." Chen's mind raced, analyzing the situation. They were so close, but victory was slipping away. Then an idea struck her, a desperate gambit, but one that might just work. "All ships, this is Captain Chen," she broadcast to the fleet. "Prepare for emergency maneuver Theta Epsilon. Sync your gravity generators to the Aegis's signal on my mark." Confusion and uncertainty rippled through the responses, but the fleet commanders trusted Chen. They had seen her pull off the impossible before. As the Zyraxian ships closed in for the kill, Chen took a deep breath. Now, suddenly, every human ship in the fleet activated their gravity generators at full power, all perfectly synchronized. The combined gravitational force created a massive momentary distortion in spacetime, an artificial singularity that lasted for just a fraction of a second. The effect on the Zyraxian fleet was catastrophic. Ships were torn apart by tidal forces, their carefully coordinated formations shattered. In the chaos that followed, the transport carrying the dimensional anchor slipped through the enemy lines. "Anchor in position," Patel shouted. "They're starting the activation sequence." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. "All ships, fall back to designated coordinates. Let's see if Dr. Rodriguez's device lives up to the hype." As the battered human fleet retreated, a wave of energy pulsed out from the dimensional anchor. It washed over friend and foe alike, but its effect on the two sides could not have been more different. The human ships, designed to operate in normal spacetime, continued to function normally. But the Zyraxian vessels, reliant on their advanced gravity manipulation and quantum technologies, suddenly found themselves adrift and powerless. "It worked," Patel breathed, his voice filled with awe. They're sitting ducks." Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the task at hand. "All ships, press the attack. Take them out while they're vulnerable." Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the task at hand. "All ships, press the attack. Take them out while they're vulnerable." What followed was less a battle than a rout. The once mighty Zyraxian armada, stripped of its technological advantages, fell before the human counterattack. Those ships that could still maneuver attempted to flee, but many were too damaged to escape. As the last Zyraxian vessel disappeared into FTL, leaving behind a field of debris and disabled ships, a cheer went up across the human fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had won its first major victory against the Zyraxian invaders. But Captain Ilara Chen knew that this was just the beginning. The Zyraxians would be back, and next time they would be prepared for the dimensional anchor. The war was far from over. As she prepared to send her report to Admiral Vasquez, Chen's gaze was drawn to the stars visible through the Aegis viewscreen. Out there somewhere, the Zyraxian homeworld waited. And now, for the first time, humanity had a real chance of finding it. The hunt was on, and Ilara Chen intended to see it through to the end. The galaxy would never be the same again. Turning the tide. The aftermath of the Battle of Proxima Centauri sent shockwaves through both human and Zyraxian space. For the first time since the war began, humanity had scored a decisive victory against their technologically superior foe. The dimensional anchor had changed everything. On Earth, celebrations erupted across the globe. The sight of Ziraxian ships, once thought invincible, drifting helplessly in space had rekindled hope in billions of hearts. But in the halls of power, leaders knew that the war was far from over. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood before the United Earth government, her posture straight and proud despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the Battle of Proxima Centauri has given us a fighting chance. But make no mistake, the Ziraxians will adapt. We must press our advantage while we still have it." The chamber erupted in debate. Some argued for an immediate counteroffensive to strike at the heart of Ziraxian territory while they were still reeling. Others cautioned patience, advocating for a buildup of forces and further development of the dimensional anchor technology. In the end, a compromise was reached. A task force would be assembled to push into Ziraxian space, seeking out their core worlds and production facilities. Meanwhile, Earth's shipyards would work around the clock to outfit the fleet with dimensional anchor technology. As the meeting adjourned, Vasquez found Captain Ilara Chen waiting outside. "I suppose you've heard," the Admiral said with a wry smile. "How do you feel about leading our first major offensive into enemy territory?" Chen's eyes gleamed with determination. "The Aegis and her crew are ready, Admiral. It's time we took the fight to them." Vasquez nodded, her expression turning serious. "This won't be like anything we've faced before, Ilara. We'll be operating deep in unknown space, far from any support. The fate of humanity may well rest on the success of this mission." "I understand, Admiral," Chen replied. "We won't let you down." As Chen turned to leave, Vasquez called after her, "And Captain, good hunting." In the swirling depths of Ziraxian space, Supreme Coordinator Zixlora writhed in barely contained fury. The holographic displays surrounding them showed the extent of the disaster at Proxima Centauri, a catastrophic defeat that had shaken the very foundations of Ziraxian society. "How?" Zixlora burbled, their skin flashing angry shades of red and purple. "How could these primitive creatures have developed a weapon capable of negating our superior technology?" Vexera, now bearing the scars of their narrow escape from the battle, approached cautiously. "Supreme Coordinator, our scientists are working tirelessly to understand the humans' new weapon. But there are rumblings among the collective. Some are questioning the wisdom of this war." Zixlora's tentacles lashed out, striking Vexera with brutal force. "Heresy. The humans are a plague upon the galaxy, a threat to our very way of life. We will adapt, we will overcome, and we will exterminate them." As Vexera retreated, visibly shaken, Zixlora turned their attention to the strategic displays. The humans were pushing into Ziraxian space, their ships emboldened by their recent victory. But they would soon learn the true might of the Ziraxian collective. "Prepare our reserve fleets," Zixlora ordered. "It's time we showed these vermin the consequences of defying their superiors." The Aegis hung in space at the edge of a binary star system, its sensors probing the depths of Ziraxian territory. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as data from their latest reconnaissance mission streamed in. The Aegis hung in space at the edge of a binary star system, its sensors probing the depths of Ziraxian territory. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as data from their latest reconnaissance mission streamed in. "What do we have, Commander Patel?" she asked, her voice low and intense. Patel manipulated the holographic display, highlighting several points of interest. "We've detected significant Ziraxian activity in this sector, Captain. Multiple shipyards, resupply stations, and what appears to be a major command and control node." Chen nodded, her mind already formulating plans. "This could be it, the linchpin of their war effort, if we can take this out." Her words were cut short by a sudden alert from the sensor station. "Captain," Lieutenant Wong called out, her voice tight with tension. "Multiple Ziraxian signatures detected. They're on an intercept course." "Battle stations," Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the surge of adrenaline. Looks like we've outstayed our welcome. Helm, prepare for emergency jump. Tactical, stand by on the dimensional anchor. But as the crew scrambled to obey, Chen realized with growing dread that they were surrounded. Xeraxian ships were pouring in from all directions, cutting off their escape routes. "They were waiting for us," Paddle said, his face grim. "This whole sector is a trap." Chen's mind raced, analyzing their options. They were outnumbered and deep in enemy territory. But the Aegis had survived impossible odds before. "All hands," she broadcast throughout the ship, "prepare for close-quarters combat. We're not going down without a fight." As the Xeraxian fleet closed in, Chen noticed something odd about their formation. They were keeping their distance, staying just outside the effective range of the dimensional anchor. "They've adapted," she realized aloud. "They're going to try to wear us down from range." But two could play at that game. "Helm, execute maneuver Sigma 7, Chen ordered. "Tactical, prepare to deploy quantum mines. Let's remind them why they should fear human ingenuity." The Aegis surged forward, its movements erratic and unpredictable. As it wove through the Xeraxian formation, it left behind a trail of seemingly innocuous debris. The alien ships, wary of the dimensional anchor, kept their distance from the human vessel. But in doing so, they failed to notice the trap until it was too late. The quantum mines detonated, each explosion creating a localized distortion in spacetime. Xeraxian ships caught in the blasts found their carefully calibrated systems thrown into chaos. "Now," Chen shouted, "full power to the dimensional anchor." The Aegis's signature weapon flared to life, its effect magnified by the quantum distortions. A wave of normalizing energy washed over the battlefield, leaving the Xeraxian fleet crippled and vulnerable. What followed was a testament to human determination and adaptability. The Aegis, though outnumbered, danced through the disabled Xeraxian fleet, its weapons blazing. One by one, the alien vessels fell silent. As the last Xeraxian ship went dark, a cheer went up on the Aegis's bridge. They had done it. They had survived the trap and dealt a significant blow to the enemy. But Chen knew their work was far from over. "Damage report," she called out, already focusing on their next move. "Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, Paddle reported. "Shields at 60%, but holding. We're battered, but still in the fight." Chen nodded, a grim smile playing across her lips. "Good, because we're not leaving this sector until we've taken out that command and control node. It's time to show the Xeraxians that humanity isn't just going to survive this war. We're going to win it." The news of the Aegis's deep strike into Xeraxian territory spread like wildfire through both human and alien space. For the Xeraxians, it was a shock. Never before had an enemy penetrated so far into their domain. For humanity, it was a rallying cry. As more ships equipped with dimensional anchor technology joined the offensive, the tide of war began to shift dramatically. The Xeraxians found themselves pushed back on multiple fronts, their once impregnable defenses crumbling before the human onslaught. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Supreme Coordinator Zixlora ordered an all-out assault on Earth itself. But the attack, once unthinkable in its audacity, was met by a prepared and determined human defense. The Battle of Seoul, as it came to be known, ended in a decisive human victory. In the aftermath of the failed attack, cracks began to appear in the Xeraxian collective. Voices of dissent, long suppressed, began to rise. The war, they argued, had been a mistake from the beginning, a product of arrogance and xenophobia that had nearly destroyed their civilization. As the human fleet pressed deeper into Xeraxian space, a message was broadcast on all frequencies. It came not from the Supreme Coordinator, but from a coalition of Xeraxian scientists, philosophers, and military leaders who had seen the folly of continued conflict. To the people of Earth, the message began: "We seek an end to this war. We have underestimated your species to our great cost. We offer unconditional surrender and ask for the opportunity to make amends." The response from Earth was cautious but hopeful. After months of negotiations, a peace treaty was signed. The war that had threatened to annihilate both species had finally come to an end. 5 years after the signing of the peace treaty, Captain, now Admiral, Elara Chen stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station. Besides her stood Vexera, once her enemy, now the Zeraxian ambassador to Earth. "It's remarkable," Vexera burbled, their tentacles gesturing at the bustling activity around them. Humans and Zeraxians worked side by side, their combined technologies pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Who could have imagined this outcome when our peoples first met? Chen smiled, remembering the long, hard road that had brought them to this point. "That's the thing about humans, Ambassador. We're at our best when faced with impossible odds. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving, about turning adversity into opportunity." As they watched a new class of exploration vessel, its hull gleaming with a mix of human and Zeraxian design elements, prepare for its maiden voyage, Chen felt a surge of pride and excitement. The war had been devastating, but it had also forced humanity to push beyond its limits, to innovate in ways they never would have imagined. And now, with peace secured and two great civilizations working together, the future seemed brighter than ever. "So, Admiral," Vexera asked, a hint of amusement in their voice, "where do we go from here?" Chen's gaze turned to the stars visible beyond the station's force field. "Out there," she said, her voice filled with determination and wonder. "We go out there, together. The galaxy's waiting for us, and this time, we're ready for whatever it might throw our way." As the new ship engaged its engines and set off into the unknown, Chen knew that humanity's greatest adventures were still to come. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger for it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she had no doubt that the human spirit, resourceful, adaptable, and indomitable, would rise to meet them. The end of the war had not been the end of humanity's story. It was just the beginning.